Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the International Webinar Series on Holistic Health, Well-being and Sustainable Development 2025, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 78 years of independence and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 and Viksit Bharat at 2047. As part of awareness and campaigns in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Arts, Sciences and Wellbeing. Before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue today's commemorations and celebrations. Today, we are commemorating International Day for Tolerance on November 16th. Every year is a great opportunity for you to think back and recall the last time you had a different perspective than one of your friends. When the last time you had to learn something about someone else's culture. We are betting it wasn't that long ago. Look and learn the date that celebrates open mindedness and listening. So it was started by the UN General Assembly with the goal of getting educational institutions and the general public to see the tolerance as a staple of society. And it came after the United Nations declared a year of for tolerance in 1990. In 1995, UNESCO created the Declaration of Principles on Tolerance as a way to define and provide awareness of tolerance for any and all governing and participating bodies. The day in 1995 was November 16. Now, as an anniversary of that declaration, we celebrate the International Day of Tolerance every November 16 to help spread tolerance and raise awareness of any intolerance that still be prevalent in the world today. Although we should be tolerant every day, it's always good to have one occasion to remind us just how important tolerance is. Additionally, UNESCO created an award to recognize those with great achievements in promoting the spirit of tolerance or nonviolence in fields such as science, culture, and the arts. The UNESCO Madanjit Singh Prize and the UNESCO International Day for Tolerance both recognize that tolerance is a universal human right. So Gandhi returns to India from South Africa to help his homeland fight for freedom through nonviolence and tolerance. In 1915, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. A Dream is born in 1963. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, which banned discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, is established in 1964. The International Day of Tolerance is created as a way to commemorate the passing of the Declaration of Principles on Tolerance in 1995. So, because as this day for tolerance is important for the well-being, health and well-being, and peace and harmony, it helps spread awareness of intolerance and educates how to be more tolerant. A few things the world could really use more of right now. By learning more about tolerance and intolerance, celebrating the difference between cultures, start a conversation with someone with a different viewpoint. You'll likely find you more in common than expected. The United Nations portal is a great place to start reading up and learning about the history of this day. November 16th is International Day of Tolerance, and it has been this day since its inception by the United Nations in 1995. So, reading about different cultures or nationalities is one of the best ways to help break down your intolerances that you may not know you have, as well as help increase your awareness of other intolerances throughout the world. In order to celebrate tolerance, you may often need to make yourself aware of intolerance. Listening to others is a great way to open your perspective and take a better look at the world and how you perceive it. Tolerance and intolerance can only be identified by listening more to those who may have suffered at the hands of intolerance and hearing what they have to say. If you want to truly help celebrate International Day of Tolerance, the best thing to do is go out and participate, online or offline, whether it's a candlelight vigil for the victims of intolerance, or a lecture, or a seminar, or a webinar from an esteemed activist or through leader. Getting out there and getting involved will only help you grow. So, hate crimes on average, 8 black people, 3 white people, 3 gay people, 3 Jewish people, and 1 Latino person became, become hate crimes victims daily in the West and in India. We can see hate crimes spread by missionaries, especially the religions like Islam and Christianity. They always try to discriminate and create disharmony among the communities by spreading hate speech and by discriminating even at the level of the so-called sacred gods, and the spreading all kinds of misinformation, disinformation, and false propaganda with an hidden agenda of conversion. And they always spit venom on the communities that do not align with their hidden agenda. So this kind of hate speech and hate crimes which should be countered by the facts and the truth to protect people and avoid such discrimination and violation of human rights. A lot is committed by young people. 50% of all the hate crimes in the US are committed by people between ages and 24, because they are most vulnerable at that age and even beyond also. So there is no criteria as specific to whether they're literates or illiterates. All are, victims and vulnerables of the hate crimes and hate speech, taking actively part because of the propaganda, under the influence of propaganda and hidden agendas. So race and religion is the main motive in most hate crimes reported, followed by sexual orientation, as well as the religion being a target. No one is born with inherent hate. Hate crimes stem from a learned behavior of hatred or one's self-taught bias. So this should be taught in a proper way. And nowadays, education without values, education without human principles always lead to such materialistic, where the hate crimes and hate speech have been a tool for spreading intolerance in the community. So International Day for Tolerance is a great educational resource to help learn about how to be more tolerant person, but also the intolerances that may still be happening around the world, inherently based on the idea that humans should come together rather than be divided. International Day for Tolerance is a day to celebrate the differences between culture and creeds and appreciate what they bring to our lives. International Day of Tolerance is important because although great strides have been made, more work needs to be done to eradicate intolerance throughout the world. By increasing awareness and spreading education on days such as this, it helps play an active role in elimination of intolerance. Today is also commemorated as National Black Marketers Day in US, especially in the light of discrimination and long-standing abuse and discrimination of black in US, which is clearly evident of racism in the most developed country and powerful nation, also reminds us no matter how educated you are, how modern you are still vulnerable for such this kind of hate crimes and discrimination. So this day celebrates the achievements of black marketers in America and the role of black culture played in influencing in marketing. Black here connotates not the ugly or something different. Here, the significance here is black color skin. So the Black Marketers Coalition, BMC, created this day, and they often organize events during the week leading up to it, such as fun networking and a happy hour parties. Aside from these festivities, the Black Marketers Coalition also hosts monthly chats and industry insiders. They discuss trending topics with black marketers and they rallies, sharing knowledge and learning from each other. Marketing is an essential ingredient to the success of companies in advertising, client engagement, building lasting relationships. Yet, the efforts of achievements of marketers sometimes go unrecognized. A problem, especially for the black marketers. With this in mind, the Black Marketers Coalition, BMC, was founded in 2019 in Atlanta, Georgia. The goal of BMC was to support black marketers countrywide, in and outside the workplace. Because there is a lot of racism evident in US between, that is, blacks are discriminated from whites and white get, white skin color get a higher privilege than black. So the BMC tapped into a pool of over 500 black marketers and they realized in the US promoting black people for jobs and prioritizing solid relationships over business. So Sekio Glenn, the BMC founder, started a career in the marketing industry as a fan service coordinated for the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lack of representation, lack of guidance from her peers, and even inequity in wages and delegation of duties frustrated her ambitions. Glenn noticed that black business and black marketers were approached or not approached differently. Even their approach. So these observations drove her towards starting a consultancy that supports black business and businessmen that want to reach black, diverse, or underrepresented consumers. So one of the Glenn's biggest inspirations in founding the BMC was businessman John H. Johnson, the founder of Johnson Publishing Company, the first black media company in America, which gave black marketers a start in the industry. Johnson Publishing Company produced Ebony and Jet for decades. These publications chronicle black culture, fashion, music, politics, and more. Johnson left his mark on the industry, and his vision still lives on even after his passing in 2005. In the spirit of celebrating black influence in media and marketing, National Black Marketing Days was created. Today is also commemorated as World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims. internationally on November 16 and also celebrated on every third Sunday, that is on November 21st. Wherever it is occurring on November 21st. But this month it's being on 16th November. So World Health Organization and United Nations recognized this day and was founded by the Road Peace, a British charity organization, to acknowledge and commemorate the victims of road crashes and their bereaved families. Almost 4,000 people are killed and hundreds of thousands are injured on roads worldwide every single day. The loss of loved ones to selfless violence and the apathy of the judiciary and the government, it's too much for a family to bear. And the Remembrance Day encourages people to share resources and offer critical support to the millions affected by the recurring preventable tragedy. Today is also commemorated as GERD Awareness Week from November 16th to 22nd, which began in November 1999 when it was added to the US National Health Observance Calendar. Throughout the year, but especially during this time, the International Foundation for Gastrointestinal Disorders, IFFGD, encourages people who experience the symptoms of GERD. For example, heartburn, fluid flowing back up into the mouth, sensation of food sticking to the esophagus, and more. To seek treatment, we help that if you are a sufferer, or mere change in diet will do the trick. But for many, it's not easy. GERD stands from gastroesophageal reflux disease, and it affects approximately 20% of the population. To various diseases for individuals. So if you know someone, including yourself, you should avail themselves the extra information. Sit back and observe what we found out. For over a century, doctors have known of the relationship between backflow of food from stomach into the esophagus and the pain associated with it. We call heartburn. It's a rare individual who never had the sick feeling irritation after a meal and tried to figure out exactly what they ate so they could avoid the food in the future. Then again, there are those who love certain food so much that they are willing to put up with the heartburn afterwards, perhaps leaning on over the counter medication to suit the situation as it may. But how did we get from there to the condition called GERD, and how did the week of recognition originate? There is no single known cause of this disease, but the medical professionals know the reflex aspect of it happens when the muscle barrier between the esophagus and the stomach malfunctions or is otherwise overwhelmed. And the doctors now distinguish between simple heartburn, which can afflict anyone occasionally, and the suite of symptoms associated with GERD, among which is heartburn in just once. So let's get these in order while including a third related term, acid reflux. So heartburn is a symptom of acid reflux, which covers other symptoms such as regurgitation into the throat, etc. Acid reflux is a symptom of GERD, which also covers other symptoms like wheezing in bed, etc. So we have it on good authority that it was the evolving nature of these digestive phenomena and their interrelation with each other, combined with the increasing numbers of suffering patients, that led the IFFGD to seek official recognition for GERD as a formidable foe. Depending on certain factors like strength or amount of acid present in the backflowing liquid, the frequency of reflux incidents and the duration of them, your esophagus may indeed be seriously damaged. If you are in doubt about whether to seek medical treatment, err on the side of caution and call your doctor or nurse practitioner. So, funnily enough, one of the more reliable indicators is to go on a 2 week trial of a proton pump inhibitor, which is prescription medicine that blocks gastric acid secretion. If uncomfortable and painful GI symptoms as a whole are elevated, it's mainly presumed that GERD is or was the cause. You and your provider should then discuss on the ongoing therapies would be appropriate. So generally, the foods to avoid the ones that are high in acid or caffeine, like citrus fruits, cranberries, coffee, chocolate, peppermint, and spicy foods. But that still leaves plenty of delicious options. Try simplifying a little. French cuisine, for example, is based on concept of starting with the highest quality ingredients and using cooking techniques that enhance the flavor of those ingredients. Roasting as that has been stuffed with fresh herbs is a classic of French cooking and would be a perfect centerpiece for a GERD-friendly feast in the West. In India, we have multiple options where you can embrace different kinds of lifestyle. So try out with traditional or customized for yourself. Cook something tasty for a friend with GERD. Maybe you have a friend dealing with GERD who have a birthday coming up, or you can also use this day as an occasion to invite him or her. You could dream up a special celebratory dessert to show your support. This time of the year, almost anything with apples would be a great choice. You may want to check first, just be sure your friend doesn't have other food issues like dairy or gluten intolerance. It's fun to surprise people, but may not be this time. So even though it's little early for resolutions, there's no time like the present for committing to healthy eating habits. A little at a time. Drink just a little less coffee or tea, for example, then perhaps try moderating the amount of heat producing spices when you cook and simply reducing the overall quantity of food you take it each meal can make a difference, as well as eating more slowly, which in itself has been proven to aid digestion. And if you are having trouble slowing down, try focusing only on your food. No multitasking while you eat. Though many of us make an automatic connection between heartburn and the treatment of it with antacids, antacids are also used to help with general upset stomachs, indigestion, and the like. They are very versatile. They contain seemingly contradictory ingredients, the hydroxides in antacids, namely aluminum hydroxide and magnesium hydroxide. Both ease in pain of digestive discomfort but have the opposing side effects, constipation and diarrhea, respectively. It's unfortunate, but it's a common occurrence for elderly men and women to take OTC antacids to excess in responsive to the heartburn and other GI discomfort, a little but about brittle. So many antacids contain the substance dimethicone, which works to reduce gas in GI tract, or as one popular online medical reference puts it, gas bubbles in the gut out of gas. The royal treatment in the early 1800s, Welsh physician James Murray treated it, the mucus of Angeles, so effectively with milk of magnesia, one of the earliest antacids. The Murray was kept as a resident physician under two subsequent lords and eventually knighted. If you have never heard of GERD, which is related to acid reflux disease, you may be suffering from it without really realizing it. Without treatment over time, it's possible for the GERD to lead a precancerous conditions And even if you are perfectly healthy yourself, knowing more about GERD may help you. Recognizing symptoms in a friend or family member or encourage them to seek medical attention. It reminds us all to be conscious of how we eat and drink. Even if you have never had any symptoms of GERD, it's possible to trigger an episode by indulging in food and drinks that are highly acidic. This week is a great time to educate yourself and your family about the role your diet plays in the disease. It's not about depriving yourself, but more about learning how to enjoy treats in moderation to help prevent GERD and related conditions. By learning about the foods and beverages that can help support a healthier gastrointestinal system, it may be possible not just control your GERD symptoms, but to heal your body over time. This may not apply in everyone's situation. Be sure to talk with your own doctor about all possible treatment options that would be appropriate for you. Making dietary changes does take commitment, but it's for a good cause, helping you enjoy your life to the fullest. It can help you to enhance your quality of life, health, and well being. So, what are you waiting for? Go ahead. This week is also commemorated as Restorative Justice Week from November 16th to 22nd, also known as RJ Week, starts every third Sunday of November from November 16th to 22nd this year to honor and propagate the ethos of justice based on the restoration of human connection. Restorative justice is an alternative to incarceration or statutory punishment for crime, and it is just about finding a way to establish communication between the offender and the victim. For offenders, the Restorative Justice Program offers an opportunity to take responsibility for the harm they have caused. For the victims, it aims to reduce the feeling of anger and powerlessness. The 8 days are dedicated to uplifting stories, meaningful suggestions, and advocating for legislation that views crime as an outcome of a failed society rather than action of flawed individual. The propagation of restorative justice has been around since the 70s when the prison chaplains of England launched a prisoner study for the incinerated people. Several countries adopted the idea and it was later transformed into a prisoners week. So to this day, National Prison Week and International RJ Week are celebrated in collaboration. In 1996, Canada adopted Restorative Justice Week to honor the benefits of justice based on restoration. For centuries, the basic rule of retributive justice has carried on without criticism, yet it has failed to deliver as a safer, crime free community. This alternative focuses on the human condition and our desire to heal through the repentance of those who have wronged us. Restorative justice offers a pathway to healing. Professor John Breathwaite defines it as the idea that because crime hurts, justice should heal. Every RJ week has a theme inspiring innovation, family matters, communities responding to human needs. So let's honor and celebrate the advocates, supporters, educators, practitioners, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and researchers for their tireless work in the field of restorative justice. Psychologist Albert Eglash initiates the modern usage of the phrase restorative justice to describe the three forms of justice. In 1977, coined the phrase. American criminologist Howard Zer articulates the theory of restorative justice in his groundbreaking book, Changing Lenses, a literary recognition in 1990. The government of Canada adopts Restorative Justice Week and the movement gains ground on the European Forum in 2005 with international acclaim. The Committee of the Ministers of the Council of Europe adopts recommendation to recognize the potential benefits of restorative justice in 2018. So now you might be wondering, is restorative justice about forgiving the criminals? Restoring justice is about the offender taking responsibility for their actions. Although forgiveness is the ideal pathway, it's not the primary objective of the process, and it is certainly not demanded from the victim. There are deep connections between the principles of restorative justice and the teachings of the Bible or any other, Western religion. However, modern day restorative justice programs are based on evidence-based crime or reduction research through personal intervention or not on any religion, especially where these kind of practices are where the Christianity prevails and a lot of crimes are committed. Unfortunately, the Christianity also has certain systems which promote crime in different way. You go to church and they have these what they called as, I'm unable to recollect that particular word, but they have similar practices where they go and repent themselves before the practitioners, and they say that they have forgiven their sins, they are forbidden of their sins, and again they go back to the community and commit sins and come back. It becomes a daily routine for them. So you cannot forgive people like them. For those, it becomes a daily routine or a regular routine of committing sins, committing crimes and committing abuse and all sorts of things, and come to church and and do all sorts of nasty things, and you cannot forgive them on a daily basis. That cannot be an affair unless and until there is a genuine repentance from the heart, and that should be shown in the practice, that it should not be repeated again. If the same repeats, then the entire system gets mockery and there is no forgiveness. So similarly, that's why especially these are more referred to the Bible rather than, because no other religion has similar kind of things that you commit and crimes and sins and all sorts of nonsense and come to religious place and you tell to God and your all sins are washed away. This kind of things are not there in any religion as unfortunately, there are certain religions, they promote this kind of thing because they have an hidden agenda of converting people and spreading hatred, discrimination among communities. Unfortunately, to convert people, because unless and until they hate the existing system, they discriminate existing system, they are not going to leave their existing present practices. So that is the main reason they spread hatred among the existing system within their own family structures, within their own community structures, within their own religious structures, and within their own nation also. People go against nation, like we have seen recent terrorist attacks where even highly educated people like doctors, engineers, and scientists also go to the extent of destroying their own nation where they are born, where they are brought up, and everything they have then, and they use, they are brainwashed to such an extent they have become a terrorist traitors of their own nation. All this is because of this kind of hate speech, this kind of misinformation, disinformation, and all kinds of hidden agendas to that creates hatred towards not only themselves, towards their own community, towards their own family, towards their own nation, and they become traitors of everyone. And before they realize, it's too late. So that realization doesn't come, and there is a lot of ecosystem that they will not give them even an opportunity to think or to realize. So these kind of the environment, the kind of ecosystem they are into, they will never allow them to think, even for a moment to think. So the very first thing we have to, take out them from the ecosystem, from the scaffolding of the such ecosystems, which does not allow them to reform themselves, to repent themselves. So though there are, they can be done through monetary exchange, but that doesn't, actually give them justice. So actions like compensation, payment of money to the victim from the offender or other monetary amounts are a part of restorative justice programs. But however, the mediation must be between the victim and the offender, not between the offender and the state. Otherwise, everyone will be sitting across the table and, like we mentioned, you go to the church and say, I have killed that person, you forgive me. And that person will say, oh, I forgive you because you have come before the Jesus and, or Allah or someone, and your all sins are, cleared, and you can go. You are now sin free. Now tomorrow also he or she will go again repeat the same thing, and tomorrow also, that person will come back to church or mosque or somewhere, and again. So this will become a routine, and they will not have they don't truly understand the kind of repentance, the kind of you know practices they are into, and they can become lunatic, they can become narcissistic, and this can create a lot of non very insecure world where there is a lot of non-violent violence, there is a lot of hatred, there is a lot of discrimination, there is violation of human rights that happen. All these things today, in the context of the day where we are separate, where we are celebrating and commemorating the tolerance. This is all because of intolerance of the diversity. They are not able to appreciate the diversity. It is only them or none. This kind of intolerance towards the diversity creates a lot of issues: jealousy, hatred towards other people. So, what we have to do now, it's all our responsibility as a responsible citizen of the nation. Organize an event to promote restorative justice, plan an event to acquaint people with the benefits of restorative justice, invite your neighbors, friends, colleagues, family, researchers, scholars, students, all the academias and practitioners, judicial system, stakeholders, and share your strides made in this field. You never know how many restorations you can inspire. And there are tons of reading materials, case studies, annotated bibliography, and correctional meeting records to be shared with public. The third week of November, this entire week is of great chances to do just that, share resources about restorative justice. It's time to make amends. The constrained people in your life communicate heals, communities, communication heals. Communities, individuals, nations, following the principles of restorative justice must begin at home. It is not at the counseling center. It is not at the correctional centers. It should always begin with you at your home, within your family, then in your neighborhood, then to the societies, communities, and so on, with the people in your life. So resolve an old grudge today. It's expensive to be a criminal. The prison system's annual bill to the US itself is 81 billion. And not only just US, across the world, if you see the statistics, there is a huge burden on the system on maintaining these criminals and prisons and correctional settings. there is a criminal on the block in 2015, 1 in 115 American adults were incarcerated. And since 2000, the female prison population of the US also has increased by 50%. You can imagine just in the US, where we think the justice system is too to be perfect, you can see almost it's half 50%. And sometimes, even not comparing with the male counterparts, the recent statistic shows that even the female criminals have increased to 50%. Now, feminism is also taking a stride. Why? We need to look into these all kind of aspects. And, every day has become a funeral day. 12 people die in the US itself, prison system. Every day, 12 people are dying in US prison system every day. And top cause of the death is suicide. Now, why this is happening? So despite it all, it's a crime of law. Several studies have concluded that serving a prison sentence has no preventive effect on person's propensity to commit violent crimes. Now, what is the use at the end of this day? What is that we are going to achieve with this? Some of the best criminal justice systems in the world have failed to reduce crime or minimize the loss of life due to politics, corruption in the judicial system itself, corruption in the governance itself. So it's time to dig beyond the metal bars and jumpsuits for alternative methods of justice. The justice systems deserve a great reform and a great reckoning because all lives matter. Restorative Justice Week calls for a broader introspection in the way we carry out justice. The traditional form of justice focus on judging a human being based on the worst moment of their lives. So in contrast, restorative justice focuses on a life that continues after the crime. It should be reforming and bringing back that person to the society, not labeling that person or making that crime attitude behavior continue even in the prisons or once they are released back to the community. There need to be a lot of reformative strategy, justice process that needs to take an up in a proper way. When the loss suffered by the victim is earmarked into the pages of court documents, it serves them no good. The highest corruption in the judicial system, the highest corruption in the law and order takes years and years together. Justice delayed is justice denied. We need to understand the fact that the justice, even sometimes when the victim passes away, also justice is not delivered. Justice, then it is a failure of the justice system that it is not able to perform its active, duties and its responsibility. So, what is the point of having a justice system if it doesn't function? The highest corruption in the judiciary itself promotes lots of crime. If there is a fear, if people are feeling there is a sense of fear that just I will be punished if I have committed a crime, then they will forbid themselves in committing a crime. But if a person feels that I can commit a crime and I can get rid of easily, then definitely there is no fear. There is no conscience of not committing a crime. And person is motivated to commit more crime. And why this is happening? Because of the failure of justice system. So whatever system it is, judicial system it is not functioning properly. Why it is not functioning properly? The corruption within the judicial system is making itself a mockery of its own system. We need to identify what are the factors that are making judicial system highly vulnerable to all these pressures and why it is vulnerable to the corruption within the system, outside the system, so that the justice is delivered in time. Otherwise, it can convey a wrong message to the criminals and offenders that you can do any sorts of crimes. You can offend any times, and you will be scot-free. You will not be punished. Most of the time, if you see, look at the statistic itself, how many are convicted? Unfortunately, not even 10 to 12%. So if that is a conviction rate of judicial system, you can imagine. Of course, there are some false cases and all those things happening. But imagine how many would be the false cases. If you take 100 cases, only 10 to 12% is the conviction rate. Within that, okay, let's take 10% as false cases. So adding them also, if it is coming to 20 to 22% of the conviction rate, so there is a possibility of 88% of not getting punished, even after committing a crime, even after committing offense. Now, how you will control the society or an individual or a community or a group not to commit a crime? So it's a utter failure of the judicial system. There is no integrity, there is no accountability in the judicial system as a system itself in enforcing their rules and regulations on the community. Community has their own rules and regulations because people are abiding by their different, principles, morality, ethics, and by the law of karma and the law of goodness, and so many things. They themselves are, abiding citizens. Otherwise, this judicial system has never have been successful in creating that kind of conscience to prevent crimes. If it has really created the crime rate or the offenses rate at which they are increasing, wouldn't have been there. Why they are increasing across the world, not just at any country. You take any country, crimes are increasing, offenses are increasing, because it is because of the highest corruption in the judicial system, because the judicial system is not able to create a consciousness that if you commit an offense, if you commit a crime, you will be punished. There is no clear message. Unless and until the judicial system itself reforms itself, you cannot control the crimes, you cannot control the offenses, and you cannot prevent and also decrease the rate of offenses. Now, the first reform should start with the judicial system itself. So let's all be the citizens. We are all citizens. Journalists, as a citizen, every citizen is responsible to report such corruption in the judicial system, and also not just report, but also provide solutions, provide suggestions. Let's use this week as a proactive measure to everyone come forward so that restorative justice, otherwise also justice, prevails. So one more atrocity we have seen, the religion, the churches, how they abused and controlled governments, and they have committed so much atrocities across across the world where it was widely prevalent. There is a great reform that, especially a wonderful thing that has happened in the US. Today is also this week. In fact, entire week is commemorated as separation of church and state week from November 16th to 22nd. Otherwise, church has taken control of the entire government systems, and it created a havoc of the entire, and they started dominating the governments, and they acted just upon their will and wish without any rules and regulations. So all kinds of atrocities that are committed by such across the world, we can see even many countries, many people are suffering even today. So the separation of church and state week falls in the week of Thanksgiving Day as a secular response to the National Bible Week from November 16th to 22nd this year. The Americans United for the Separation of Church and State and the Institute for First Amendment Studies, IAFAS, declared the week to challenge the notion that we are one nation under God, because we are, in fact, one nation under our Constitution. So the Constitution and the God, that is the Constitution and the church, got separated in this week, starting on the Sunday before Thanksgiving Day. The whole week is dedicated to highlighting that secular values of American Republic and the important work activists and the organizations to do awareness about legal options available for the victims of church-state violations. These churches have been so cruel, and they have violated all kinds of atrocities, committed human rights. So there was a great revolution, in fact, resistance or renaissance across the churches. People took out protest and in all kind of atrocities, abuses, and discrimination, and killings, and persecutions committed by the churches and church-state controlled situations. By organizing the first National Bible Week in the US, especially these are all in context of US, President Roosevelt set a tradition followed by every president since. In response, the separation of church and state week was conceived to promote the fight against encroachment of religion, Christianity especially, and churches in public institutions, by rallying for a secular government free from these churches and Christianity, and celebrating the secular values of the US. It advocates for religious liberty, freedom of worship, and other secular rights of the American people. It is a good time to understand our duty as citizens of the Republic to defend our unalienable rights. The first use of the phrase separation of church and state comes from a letter written by President Thomas Jefferson to Baptists from Danbury, Connecticut in 1802. In the letter, he reiterates that the religion is one thing that rests solely between a man and his God, and government has no business to interfere, and even church has no business to interfere in the government. Unfortunately, even in India also, government is controlling the Hindu temples, which is against the constitution. But unfortunately, the politics and the great tolerance of Hindus and the great trust on Hindus and government is taken for a toss or a toll, and they are taken for granted, and government is abusing the system, abusing its own constitution. But unfortunately, this is not for good, where it is promoting a lot of conversions and a lot of intolerance, lot of discrimination spread across the nation. So it itself sees that government failure and government, adherence or abidance to the constitution itself is a failure, and the government itself violates the constitutional provisions, is a great blunder that is done by the system itself. If you can see, we are not learning lessons from our own history, and rather looking at these so-called states, like developed states like US also. So in 1802, the letter, he reiterates that religion is one thing that rests solely between a man and his God, man or woman, whatever it is. So he stood his ground against the request to establish a national church, citing the United States Bill of Rights, which mentioned also the government would not interfere in the freedom of religion, and even the church would also not interfere into the government affairs. The 1791 Bill of the Rights made 10 amendments to the US Constitution and was among the first political expression of religious liberty. The 1955 promulgation of the Johnson Amendment also implied a clear separation of church and state. State here refers to the government, setting a landmark precedent. So activists, liberals, and intellectuals also raised their voices to educate people about the importance of war, limiting government interference in people's religious choices, at the same time church into government activities. So this week's participants take inspiration from the remarkable work done by the establishments like American Atheists and the Freedom from Religious Foundation, The American Humanist Association uses this week to promote advocacy for victims of violation. So, Maryland Toleration Act, Lord Baltimore drafts the first secular US law to protect Maryland colonists' right to worship as they please whichever religion they want to follow, and abuse and atrocities of church and their systems on April 21st, 1649. And the US adopts the Constitution without establishing an official religion of the Republic, the ratification of the Constitution on September 17, 1787, and there is no official religion in the US. And US is a secular country as such. But though the term secular is not imbibed in the Constitution, like in India, where Congress has introduced secularism and it has become a tool for a lot of atrocities on Hindus, that's a different story. Though we have discussed now, due to paucity of time, I'm not getting into that. Whenever there is a time, we will discuss on it. The First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, is ratified by the US government. The Bill of Rights on 15 December 1791. And President Thomas Jefferson uses the phrase for the first time in a letter to Danbury Baptist Association on January 1st, 1802, the separation of the church and the state government. So this marks the division of church and government. Both are separate entities, and church should not involve in the government, and government should not get into the affairs of church, only in religious matters. In all other matters where there is a violation of constitution, violation of human rights, violation of law and order, government can interfere. But church cannot interfere in any other aspects. It's only, it is only concerned with the religious matters where the religious authority rests with the religious followers and preachers. Only those matters which does not violate the Constitution or which does not violate human rights, they have a say, but that also is governed by the Constitution. They cannot go beyond the Constitution and exercise their rights and privileges. So now, I think you got a clarity. Now, is the US a Christian country? No. The US hasn't had any official religion since its inception, because we know how what is the history of US. So it's not a Christian country officially. There is nothing that says US is a Christian country. However, Christianity is the most prevalent religion in the country, with nearly 205 million people identifying as Christians. So now you may need further clarity. How does the separation of church and state mean exactly? The separation of church and state means that the elected government should recognize any religion as supreme, not just Christianity. Whatever religion it may be, it should recognize any religion, for that matter, as supreme, and enforce any law that prohibits the practice of any religion, and must remain neutral towards all religions. See, Constitution should not support any religion. Here in India, what happens? Government controls all the Hindu temples, institutions, but all the other Christian and all the other Islam religious institutions are set free. This is a discrimination of Constitution itself, violation of constitutional provision itself. See, when government itself, when the rulers itself do not follow Constitution, when the rulers itself violate Constitution, how do they expect citizens to follow? When they are preaching and when they themselves fail to follow the Constitution and constitutional provisions, how do they expect their citizens to follow them? There is no ethics and morals for the government itself. They don't follow, they just keep preaching. And they preach one thing and they follow one thing. Then is there any accountability? Is there any reliability? Is there any integrity? So we need to think what we are doing, what we are preaching, and what we are practicing. If there is no connectedness, there is no relativity between what we preach and what we practice, then definitely there is no accountability or there is no integrity. So the separation of church and state means the elected government should not recognize any religion as supreme and enforce any law that prohibits practice of any religion towards all religions. Either you control everything or you don't control everything. You cannot have pseudo-secularism in the name of secularism, controlling one religion and leaving off all religions and taking Hindus for it all and for granted and allowing Hindus to be discriminated, to be converted, and this kind of violation, it conveys a very wrong message. So you yourself don't respect Constitution, and you want others to respect Constitution and others to respect you. How that doesn't? It doesn't work that way, right? That's why we say a lot of corruption itself in the judicial system. Unless and until judicial system itself is not reformed, there is no moral consciousness. There is no ethical consciousness in the judicial system itself. If there was, then why you are discriminating? Why you are not following your own constitution? Why you are not following your own constitutional provisions? Why you are controlling one religion and why you are not controlling other religions? Why you are promoting conversions and why you are not restricting? Why you are not punishing? Why you are not able to limit that? Because of political reasons, because of appeasements. This is a clear violation of human rights. Now, where are the intellectuals? They are brainwashed, and they are, like recently, we have seen doctors, professors, engineers, they are becoming terrorists because of lack of value education. Now, how do you see that? What kind of education we are giving to the citizens? A total reforms in the system has to be taken unless and until we cannot expect a global peace and harmony on the planet. So the founding fathers believed that the American people should be free to make their choices and operate as they believe, including their freedom to worship. The Bill of Rights was specially intended to separate church and the state, although not mentioned in literal terms. So multiple organizations work pro bono to fight violations of the separation of church and state. The November, especially every year, this November, you can educate people about the sovereign rights and duty to uphold the First Amendment. And groups like the American Humanist Association, American Atheists, and many others are constantly looking up for volunteers and service members to expand their work throughout the country. And if you care about religious liberty and secular values, sign up. So share your knowledge about the separation of church and state. Spread. You can share it online, offline, on online media or social media. There is always a struggle between the state and the religion. Unfortunately, certain governments were good enough and certain governments are highly biased towards one religion, and certain governments are, appeasement governments. A lot of, there is no fair government as such. We see in practice. So maybe theoretically it is there, but in practice, you can see clearly controlling one religion and leaving all the other religions. It is highly discriminatory system that we have, unfortunately, in this country. Now, who is responsible for that? The state itself, if it discriminates against the Constitution, against the constitutional provisions, against the universal human rights, now who is going to question that? Who is going to bring reform? Now, what these so-called intellectuals what these so-called learned people, educated people are doing, what kind of education we are imparting through our schools, colleges, educational, higher educational, like universities. Means all this education is going vain without a common sense. People are educated, getting degrees without a common sense. Now, what kind of education these institutions are imparting? They are becoming factories rather than, providing common sense to the students, scholars, and researchers. There should be a conscious awakening among all. Now, let's come back to this particular topic, where the US Constitution doesn't include the word God. However, the Constitution of every state does. And although only 65% of the country identifies as Christian, the United States Congress has always been overwhelmingly Christian, 89%. Again, Christian party in Congress. That's why even in India also, we can see Congress is Christian and Christian is Congress. And again, Islam is Congress and Congress is Islam. So they don't support Hinduism either officially or unofficially. That has been a hidden agenda, open agenda, secret agenda, and everywhere. Because Hindus are the majority, they are supporting Congress, and Congress is what they are doing. We know every day a temple is attacked, every day a Hindu is attacked, and every day one temple is demolished. And how do we understand all these things? Right? I'm leaving it to you. Just ponder and you come up with your own interpretation or your own justification. A Supreme Court ruling in 1962 declared it unconstitutional for a public school teacher to lead a class in the prayer. But what happens? Here, all churches preach, irrespective of a religion. If you are a Hindu student, you cannot force a Hindu student to do prayer. But what missionaries are doing, missionary schools, convents are doing, and they are not even allowing you if you wear a tilak or if you wear a mala. It's a clear violation of human rights. It's a clear violation of right to freedom of religion. But why they are not being punished? It raises fundamental question of constitutional implementation. It raises fundamental question of human rights implementation. Right? Do you agree or not? Ponder upon. So, using these words during the oath ceremony or elected officials depends on personal preference as no one forces it. So, you can take in the name of God or no one forces it. Whichever God you like, whichever religion you like, you take. See, as such religion, there is no good religion or bad religion. The people who promote that religion is good or bad. Now, all religions promote one thing, but people who are heading that religion have their vested interests, and they, to create, to promote their own religion, they spread hatred that my religion is great, my God is only God, and my system is only system. Otherwise, if you don't follow my system, you'll go to hell. All such as stupidity, the height of foolishness, the height of hatred, all such blunders that happen, you should never follow that religion. At the end of the day, you will see your end. You will meet your doomsday because that's no longer sustainable. You should go back to history and see what has happened across the world. You have to go back to Roman Celtic civilizations, which has been termed self-proclaimed as great civilizations. Even their ruins are not available now. Today, all these so-called self-proclaimed are going to end soon, and they are going to meet their fate like their so-called great civilizations. They are going to see their end. But don't become traitors of yourself, your own community. So you will be recorded orchestrators of your own community. Now they are, anyway, they know what they are doing, but unfortunately, you are becoming the scapegoats. And today, as we are celebrating the tolerance, so if you become yourself intolerant, then you are the victim, you are the scapegoat, and tomorrow you are the one because you have taken decision either under the influence or under the persuasion as you are persuaded. So think, what happened to your consciousness? What happened to your knowledge? What happened to your wisdom? What happened to your consciousness? You are also an individual of your own consciousness. Just because someone suggested you, you cannot go blindly with that. You have your own intelligence. You have your own SWOT analysis of your strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. You have your own priorities. You can't just become so vulnerable that you don't have your own consciousness. So this is a day. It's a privilege to live in a secular state. The separation of church and state week highlights the importance of religious liberty. At the same time, non-interference of government. In the past, millions of people were persecuted and killed for their religion. We see even people have been killed because they don't follow their religion. And see, you can see lakhs, crores and crores of people were killed by churches because they raised question against the church. They raised authority. They questioned the authority of the churches. So many people were killed brutally. These kind of atrocities are happening even today, and it will continue because they don't like to be questioned. Just you have to follow like a sheep, scapegoats. That's all. You are slave, bonded slaves of such people, such systems. You cannot question. Once you are questioned, you are persecuted, you are killed. And such kind of religions, when you follow, what best one can expect from such religions? Where is the religious freedom where you cannot question your own religion? So the separation of church and the state week highlights the importance of religious liberty. In the past, millions of peoples were persecuted across the world and killed for their religion, forming a republic where religious freedom is a basic human right and cannot be taken for granted. So it's a privilege to live in a secular state unless and until you experience being a, the religion like Islamic state or a Christian state. If you go there and then live, you will understand what is the privilege of living in a secular state and not just a documented state for the namesake, but truly live in a country where in India, like you are respected irrespective of your religion. But for political reasons, things are in other side. Otherwise, India has given birth to so many religions. And a 2019 poll conducted by the American United for the separation of church and state concluded that more than 60% of the Americans ranked the protection of the separation of government and religion as one of their biggest priorities. So Americans agreed with the wall of separation. They demanded the clear division, a wall between the church and the government. So discrimination still exists. Even today we can see the atrocities of church and churches across the world, the persecution of people who do not follow their religion. They have been killed, targeted, attacked. Even see, in the majority of Hindus in India, Hindus are being attacked. Why? Because that is their own nature. By hook or crook, they want to convert, otherwise they will kill you. Now you are saying that they are so-called peaceful religions, peaceful systems, then it is left up to your consciousness. So think over. You are going to be the victim tomorrow. You are already a scapegoat. You are a bonded slave. Into bonded slavery, bonded slave. So on this day of tolerance, So we request everyone to ponder what exactly we are promoting, what exactly we are doing, what exactly we are preaching, what exactly we are following. Does it make any sense to you or others? There are countless cases of unjust treatment based on religion in the US itself and across the world. For example, the Colorado bakery that refused to bake a cake for a gay couple in 2018, Americans must unite to root out every kind of discrimination. And separation of church and state week is a great opportunity to do that. Here also, that is in US, but in India also, all Hindus and irrespective of anyone, Hindus should come unite. Even all the citizens should come together and invite and demand for the separation of Hindu institutions from the government. Government has no business to do business with the temples or Hindu organizations, Hindu institutions. We see a lot of endowment department which has to protect the temples under its own reign. Lot of temple lands, properties, assets were encroached, were sold, were illegally occupied. That shows the clear intent of the government to destroy Hinduism and nothing else. If government itself fails to protect the properties within its own this thing, then what it conveys? When the entire religion is controlled under the control of government and one comes and attacks that religion, what does that convey to the public? It is attack on the government itself. Can you go and attack a government office or a government official which is under government control? Then how a temple which is under your control, how the followers of a temple which is under your control is being attacked and you take no action on it? So what is that you are going to convey to the people? What is that you are going to portray yourself? So use common sense. Just because you have an undue advantage, you cannot take Hindu's tolerance for granted. We have seen in the history how Rama is there, Parshurama is there. Once the annihilation starts, then destruction will follow. No one will be left. We have seen many times to protect Dharma, how the incarnation, Lord Vishnu has taken 74 plus incarnations. From that, we have very prominent incarnations, 10 Dashavatar, 10 incarnations. And he protected Dharma and re-established Dharma. That day will also come. If you don't control yourself, then that day will come where one will come to control you, keep in your own limits. So whether it will exercise, you will exercise yourself and abide to the constitution and the human rights, or someone needs to control you. It is up to you. It is up to everyone. It is up to the government. If they don't want to control, they don't want to exercise self-control, then someone else have to control them. Now, whether you want to control yourself or whether you want to be controlled by someone else is your freedom of choice. But definitely exercise of control is necessary by yourself or by others. If you fail to control yourself, then someone else will control you. So don't go to that stage that you keep violating, you keep discriminating, you keep, spreading hatred, and you keep creating all kinds of atrocities, and tomorrow question the integrity. First of all, you establish your accountability, integrity, then, upheld the constitutional rights and privileges, upheld the constitution, upheld the human rights. This day is very important, not just, put a banner or put a conference or seminar, workshop and say, okay, today we are celebrating a day for tolerance. No, that should go, that should get disseminated into the public, and people should understand why we need to celebrate this day, why we need to commemorate this day, what exactly is tolerance, what exactly is intolerance. If you are not able to agree the other view's point, that is intolerance. You are highly intolerant to other view, other perspective. Why that kind of intolerance within you? Why you are not able to tolerate a perspective that is not in line with your perspective? This leads to a lot of other issues. We need to work on ourselves. So with this, we shall end today's commemorations. Thank you everyone for joining us. Let's have a peaceful, harmonious planet on this day where every life is valued, everyone's freedom is respected, everyone's dignity is protected, irrespective of their caste, creed, color, religion. Everyone is given opportunity. As I keep saying, the greatest disease, disorder, or illness the human is suffering is unable to see the fellow human being, unable to see the fellow living being, unable to see the non-living being as equal as him or her. Unless and until we do not get rid of the disease, disorder, or illness from ourselves, we cannot overcome these. You will keep discriminating, you will keep judging, you will keep violating, and you will have the superiority inferiority complex. You will have these practices that will continue unless and until you get over this. So with this call, I pray that tolerance prevails, justice prevails, and peace prevails, harmony prevails across the planet. Let's all live together in harmony, peace, valuing each other, respecting each other, promoting dignity, peace, freedom for all. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. With this, we shall end today's commemorations, and we request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form that has been shared in the form of polls before leaving the platform. So see you all tomorrow at the same time with the same joining link with different commemorations and celebrations. Take care. Good night.